Last month, a homeowner in the American Midwest tore out a section of her kitchen cabinetry and uncovered something that had been silently spreading for over a year. Behind the wood paneling, thick black mold had taken hold, feeding on moisture no one even realized was there. Her family had been living with it, breathing it in daily, completely unaware. When she finally called in professionals, the estimate came back at nearly $5,000. What makes this story unsettling is not just the cost, but the fact that the solution, at least in its most effective form, is sitting a few feet away in her pantry the entire time. This is not about cutting corners or ignoring serious health risks. It is about understanding a problem deeply enough to approach it intelligently. Because mold is not just a stain, not just a nuisance. It is a living system, one that has outlasted entire civilizations. And the way most people try to deal with it today is not just ineffective, it often makes the problem worse. By the end of this, you will understand not only how to eliminate mold properly using simple materials, but why this knowledge was slowly pushed out of common use, and how to apply it in a way that actually protects your home long term. Mold is often treated like dirt, something you wipe away, scrub off, or spray until it disappears. But what you see on a wall or ceiling is only a fraction of the organism itself. The visible portion is just the surface expression of a much larger structure embedded within the material. Beneath that patch lies a network of microscopic filaments that extend deep into wood, drywall, or fabric. These organisms reproduce by releasing spores, millions at a time, into the air. They are small enough to travel unnoticed, settle anywhere, and remain dormant until conditions become favorable. Give them moisture, a moderate temperature, and something organic to feed on, and they begin growing again. This is why mold problems seem to return so often. The surface gets cleaned, but the deeper structure remains intact. It waits, and when the environment allows, it comes back stronger. Health consequences are not theoretical. Prolonged exposure has been linked to respiratory issues, allergic reactions, and long-term immune stress. In enclosed environments, especially where ventilation is poor, the impact compounds over time. Treating mold as a cosmetic issue is one of the most dangerous misconceptions still in circulation. Before modern chemicals, people solved this with observation and repetition. Long before commercial cleaning products existed, households had to rely on what was available. In damp regions, where winters trapped moisture indoors and ventilation was limited, mold was a constant threat. Families learned through experience which methods worked and which did not. Records from rural communities in both Europe and North America show a consistent pattern. People used simple substances repeatedly, refining their approach through trial and error. Two of those substances appeared again and again, in completely separate regions with no communication between them. They used vinegar and baking soda. They did not understand molecular chemistry or fungal biology, but they understood outcomes. They observed that certain treatments stopped mold from returning, while others only made it disappear temporarily. Over time, their methods became reliable enough to pass down through generations. This was not folklore. It was applied knowledge built from necessity. The shift toward modern cleaning products changed more than just convenience. After the Second World War, industrial chemistry rapidly entered domestic life. The same systems that had been used for large-scale manufacturing were redirected into consumer products. Cleaning became commercialized, branded, and standardized. Traditional methods were not just replaced, they were dismissed. The messaging was clear: modern problems require modern solutions. Laboratory-developed products were presented as superior, safer, and more effective. Older methods were framed as outdated and unreliable. One product in particular came to dominate how people approached mold: bleach. It feels strong, it smells sharp, creates a visible change almost immediately. But its effectiveness depends entirely on the type of surface being treated. On non-porous materials, it can work reasonably well. But most mold problems do not occur on glass or sealed tile. They occur in drywall, wood, and other porous materials. And this is where bleach fails. Its active component does not penetrate deeply. It affects what is on the surface, but not what is beneath. Meanwhile, the water content soaks into the material, providing exactly what mold needs to grow. The result is a temporary visual fix followed by a more aggressive return. What looks like a solution is often just a delay. One of the most common natural cleaning methods is completely misunderstood. As people began moving away from harsh chemicals, a new wave of cleaning advice emerged. Many of these suggestions were well-intentioned but poorly understood. One of the most widespread examples is the combination of vinegar and baking soda. The reaction between the two is dramatic. It produces bubbles, foam, and visible activity. It gives the impression that something powerful is happening. But the chemistry tells a different story. Vinegar is acidic. Baking soda is alkaline. When they are mixed, they neutralize each other. The reaction produces carbon dioxide gas, which creates the bubbling effect, and leaves behind a mostly neutral solution. In practical terms, this means both substances lose the very properties that made them useful in the first place. The acidity that can break down mold is gone. The alkalinity that prevents regrowth is gone. What remains has little to no antimicrobial effect. The visual reaction is misleading. It looks effective, but it does not address the underlying problem. This misunderstanding has caused countless people to abandon natural methods altogether, believing they do not work. In reality, the method failed because it was applied incorrectly. Using the right approach requires sequencing, not mixing. The key principle is simple. Each substance has a specific role. It must be used separately, in a deliberate order, to achieve the desired result. The first step is to attack the mold directly. Undiluted vinegar is applied to the affected area. It needs time to work, not seconds, but a full hour at minimum. This allows the acid to penetrate beyond the surface and disrupt the internal structure of the mold. Acting too quickly interrupts the process. Scrubbing immediately removes the solution before it reaches deeper layers. Patience at this stage determines the outcome. After sufficient time has passed, the next step is removal. The area is scrubbed thoroughly with water and physically cleaned. This is essential because even dead mold can trigger reactions. Eliminating the biological material entirely reduces ongoing exposure. Once the surface is clean and dry, the final step begins. A solution of baking soda and water is applied lightly and left to dry. This creates an environment that inhibits future growth. The surface becomes less hospitable, both chemically and physically. This final layer is often overlooked, but it is what prevents recurrence. Understanding why this works gives you control over the problem. The effectiveness of this method is not accidental. It is rooted in how mold interacts with its environment. It thrives in slightly acidic, moist conditions. By first disrupting its internal balance, and then shifting the surface environment to a more alkaline, dry state, you create conditions where it cannot recover. This is not about overpowering the mold. It is about changing the rules of the environment so that it cannot survive. And this approach scales. Whether the affected area is small or large, the underlying principles remain the same. Long-term success depends on addressing the cause, not just the symptoms. Removing mold is only part of the process. Preventing it requires attention to the conditions that allowed it to grow in the first place. Moisture is the primary driver. Leaks, condensation, poor airflow, and high humidity all contribute. Reducing these factors has a greater impact than any cleaning method alone. Ventilation matters. Air movement prevents moisture from settling. Managing indoor humidity levels reduces the likelihood of spores activating. Even simple adjustments, like using exhaust fans or improving insulation, can make a significant difference. Mold is not random. It follows patterns. Learning to recognize those patterns allows you to intervene early. There is a broader pattern here worth recognizing. Over time, many practical skills have been replaced by dependence on products. Knowledge that was once common has been gradually set aside in favor of convenience. This is not always intentional, but it has consequences. When people lose the ability to understand and solve basic problems independently, they become reliant on systems that may not always serve them well. Reclaiming that knowledge does not mean rejecting modern tools. It means understanding when simpler methods are more effective. The materials involved in this approach are not special. They're widely available, inexpensive, and familiar. What makes them powerful is the way they are used. If you take one thing from this, it should be this: effectiveness comes from understanding, not from intensity. The strongest smell or the most aggressive product is not necessarily the best solution. Often it is the most controlled and informed approach that delivers results. Apply this method carefully, Give each step the time it requires. Pay attention to the conditions in your environment. Small adjustments can prevent larger problems. And if this kind of practical, historically grounded knowledge matters to you, make sure you stay connected to the channel. Share this with someone who is still relying on methods that only hide the problem. The more people understand how to deal with issues like this properly, the less they have to depend on expensive and ineffective solutions. Subscribe, stay engaged, and keep learning.